Exponential functions. The general form of an exponential function is f of x equals c times a to the x power, where a is strictly greater than 0, but it can never be equal to 1. We call a the growth factor, and it's a constant. We call c the initial value. And c cannot be equal to 0, or we wouldn't have an exponential function. So the variable, notice, is in the exponent. And the base, what we call a, is a constant. So we may form new exponential functions by using our skills of transformation. So I'll say by transforming functions of the form f of x equals c a to the x. Remember, we can reflect, stretch or compress, or shift both horizontally or vertically. I want to speak about the base one more time. The base has to be a positive number, and it can't be equal to 1. Now let's look at some examples of functions that are exponential functions and some that are not. So exponential functions, f of x equals 1/3 to the x. It's an exponential function because we have the x in the exponent, and we have a base a that is a number that's greater than 0, and it's not equal to 1. And we don't see c here, but it is a positive 1. G of x is 5 times 2 to the x, and we have a base a of 2, which is a non-negative number and not 0 or 1, and we have x in the exponent, and we have c, which is not equal to 0, is 5. Now h of x is negative 6 x to the minus 2, x minus 2 is the exponent, excuse me, plus 1. Now it's not as easy to read c from here. We'll talk about that when we get to more complicated examples, but we do see base 6, and we have a lot of transformations going on there in h of x. Now what's not an exponential function? Well, k of x equals x to the 1/3. 1/3 is a constant, and that's the exponent. So don't confuse power functions like x squared, x cubed, x to the 4th, or x to any power, any rational power, as an exponential function. M of x is also just a quadratic function, 5x squared. That's not an exponential function. X is not in the exponent. And n of x, which is negative 6 x to the minus 2 plus 1. Well, why is this not an exponential function? Because c, the initial value, is okay, but a, the base, is a negative base. So this is not an exponential function. So this is a negative base. Okay, so the base, which we called a, and also known as the growth factor, is the ratio of consecutive outputs, so changing by 1 unit. So for example, the exponential function g of x is given by the table to the right. So let's scroll down a little bit here and notice as x increases by exactly 1 unit, g of x increases by a factor of 2. So the growth factor is 2. A is 2. G of 0 is 3, so the initial value c is 3. So we can now form the equation from that table, and we could write 3 times 2 to the x.